Hi again, everyone. My name's Steph. I am a fantasy photographer from Lincoln in the UK.
And I'm John Cruz. I am a portrait photographer in Philadelphia in the US. And welcome to Artist Alchemy.
A guest with us today. So do you want to introduce yourself, our lovely guest?
Hi, Shout. My name's Craig, and I'm the founder, owner, creator of Twisted Edge magazine, based in the UK.
Thank you for being on today. So for those of you who are listening, do you want to tell us a little bit about Twisted Edge magazine and how it started and things like that?
Absolutely. Twisted Edge is 10 years old as of June this year. It originally started as a promotional platform for what I created 13 years ago as the Twisted Agency, which was a big alt model agency for the UK, Europe and beyond. When I sold off the agency, I kept the magazine and then turned it more into an actual magazine as opposed to just a sort of franchise from the agency. And so for 10 years, I've been building the magazine up as the biggest alternative lifestyle magazine in the UK, certainly. And that's where it's at today. And obviously, as you've seen bits on Instagram, it's become something more and growing even further. And yeah, it's going to be a bigger alternative lifestyle magazine.
Amazing. And how did you kind of come up with that? So you've gone from doing an agency. What did you do? Was it like a marketing agency or was it a photo?
It was a modeling agency. So it was
modeling agency.
Yeah, and it was set up for alternative models.
Male,
nice. Female, non-binary, non-gender, gender fluid, non-gender specific. Take every one of those. 13 years ago, as there wasn't a lot of alternative modeling agency kind of things back then. I think there was kind of two others. So 13 years ago was the Twisted Agency, and then Twisted Edge was a promotional platform for models within that as just another way of promoting the models within the agency.
So you're doing the agency and you're like, oh, I've got a great idea. I'm going to put this magazine up. Amazing. Where did you even start? Like, if someone's listening to this, like, I'd like to do like a magazine. Like, how did you even go from doing the agency to suddenly owning a magazine? How did that come about?
Yeah, well, I mean, back then there wasn't things like TikTok, there wasn't things like Threads and all the other kind of things, you know, Twitter and Instagram. Instagram was still kind of not as big then as what it is now. So Facebook was the main sort of social media platform. But obviously when you're using that on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, you're kind of thinking there's got to be more than this. And you know, because obviously you've got your agency there, and then you've kind of got your social media page there, and you're posting the models and the spiel that goes with that, and who they are. There's the link. But it was kind of, well, what's next? What more can I add to you know, raise the profiles more of all these models? Because at one point I had 360 models on the books.
Wow!
So that's a lot of models.
Yeah.
And where can you put these models that isn't just Facebook? So that's why someone said, I think way back then, why don't you do an e-zine? What? Okay, what is an e-zine? Went in to look at what that was, and then that was kind of it. That was the crux to start that something. And you know, I look back at the very first issues, I shudder with how terrible they look, but it was the starting point of what Twisted Edge has become. So yeah, it literally was a case of, I mean, I've always been a designer sort of by trade anyway. So putting a magazine together was kind of a, you know, when back then you had a lot more. Yeah. Plus you had so many other magazines back then that you could pull off a shelf in Smith's or somewhere. And sort of get inspiration from, and you know, there was like, you know, even back then, FHM, Loaded, Nuts, Zoo, Maxim, etc., they all had the layout that you could sort of see and go, I'll do something similar. And that's kind of where Twisted Edge was made from. It was a case of, well, I'll take a bit of that, redesign it to make it look like that. But it was primarily a lookbook, e-zine, back then.
And so did you? Sorry, John, go on.
No, so I was just going to, just so I have a little bit more context, you were really using it almost like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, in the early days, you need a platform to show their work so that they could then get hired for other jobs. Like, so it sounds like it felt very portfolio-like in the beginning. Is it still that? Is that still the DNA of the thing, or have you gone into like more storytelling? Like where have you taken it from where it was to where it is today? Like what's been the arc of that?
Sure. Yeah, it pretty much was exactly that. It was more visual portfolio of a magazine back then, and it still is to a degree now. But obviously over time's changed, like everything from the logo to layout to the style of the magazine has changed over the years. And as time's gone on, it's gone to be more visually viable, I guess. So by putting articles in there, by models wanting to tell their story on certain things, whether it be, you know, a health issue or an anxiety issue, a mental health issue, a physical issue. So those stories come in and they get put into it as well. And obviously then you've got advertising on top of that. And then you've kind of got your, but it is still predominantly like it was, just a more updated version. But where it is in this literal moment in time of August is the next issue. By September, it's going to have a new, fresh layout, but have a lot more sort of content in the way of commercials. So you'll have your film reviews, you'll have your, you know, album reviews, those kind of things,
Oh, nice.
which make it a inverted commas a proper magazine. So you don't just look at it, you can read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's sort of part of another magazine I make, which I've taken sort of a lot of that and the layout ideas to put into the new Twisted Edge as of September. And I mean, it's in design now. It's part started now, and it's looking way. And if I could look at it and go, "Oh, that looks better," that for me is an achievement, because I look at my work all the time and think, "Do I like it? Do it?" Yeah. But it is looking how it needs to look for everybody to enjoy it more.
Yeah. I just heard you skirt over that you're like, oh, I took it from another magazine I did. Sorry, you do another magazine. What is that?
It's called The Black Book,
Oh,
which
that's cool.
was created as an offset of Twisted Edge. So, and The Black Book it's kind of not just dark black and white photography, but it's kind of the darker elements of photography, which doesn't really have its own specific magazine within the industry or the UK that I'm aware of. So it's kind of, and it goes into more areas that Twisted Edge doesn't cover, so such as more art nude, more fetish, those kind of areas that don't really go in Twisted Edge because they just haven't. And it's kind of like, well, why add something now that's not been there? Whereas started from scratch with another one and then make that something as to what it was. So Black Book was created as a coffee table magazine, minimalist, photographic based, and more stylized.
Okay.
And that's been running for about a year.
Oh, wow. Oh, you're a dark horse there.
Oh, you
And
don't know half of it yet.
tell us
So
more.
Craig, how do you approach an issue? Do you what holds an issue together for you to say, okay, now I got an issue and now that's going to go out and then I'm going to go to the next month and like what's your process to to put that all together into something that hangs together?
Sure. I mean, I used to sort of set aside sort of like X amount of issues per year out of the 12 to sort of go, well, that's going to be a black and white issue. That's going to be a latex only issue. That's going to be a body confidence issue. So those are the easy ones because the theme's set before you even have to think about what's going to go in it. So they're always the easy ones. But with like a regular month, like for August issue, as the easiest example, it has its template. And has done for some time. It's obviously the template's changed over time. So I always know how many models are going to fit per issue. The page count roughly most of the time stays the same. Often I'll go over because there's that much great content. And it's literally going through, right, who's my cover model? That's my cover model. And that's my start process with anything. It is, I can't look midway through and start. I have to start at the beginning each time. Cover model is there. And then I'll work through literally my template of the magazine as to that'll be the next model. That's going to be that piece of whether it be an article or an ad, and literally go through it all from there. And every issue, I've always got more content that is needed. So some rolls over onto the following. So content has never been a problem. It's just a case of sometimes the only problem is they get too much. But content, because there's so much of it, it's easy to go, well, I'll put that one in on those pages and then break it with that, whether it be an advert or whatever, then into the next model page and so on and so forth. So putting the issues together is a lot easier, whereas obviously because it's changing its format slightly for September onwards, because it's going into the print side of things, it's, you know, I've created the template and I'm looking at the template going, does that work as a reader? So I have to look at it now, not just as a model lookbook, but as an actual reader of a magazine to know, is that too much of this or is that not enough of that? And then it's a lot of going to and from process. So over the course of about 2 weeks, I've literally made like a paper, really bad paper version of the magazine as to pages by pages, as to go, okay, a model, okay, model, article, ad page, then, and so sort of really kind of, because there's nothing else on the shelf like that I can go to use as a comparison now. It's literally doing it in a way almost from scratch, because proper magazines don't exist in the alternative lifestyle genre. So
Yeah.
it's literally a case of going, okay, you know, I'll give it to a friend, go, have a read of this. Do you think that flows all right? And that kind of thing. And luckily, I've got some amazing people that I've worked with for so long that their opinions are invaluable to me. And they're there to, and they will literally go, no, mate, that's not right. And they'll be like, okay. And I won't question that, which is good because I value their opinion above my own most of the time, because they'll see something I won't, or vice versa. So yeah, it's a longer process now, but it's a lot more of a rewarding process, because it's become a new enjoyment, a new evolution of what's currently there. So it's become a bit more playful, a lot more fun, a lot more design element to it. So it's created a whole new thing. But it's not an easy process at all,
No.
but it's a fun process.
I heard you have you said you had often too much content. So I know that you accept submissions from photographers. Do you set them for models as well, and you set up shoots as well?
I do. If a model submits images, they always have to, they're meant to provide details of the photographer, etc. If they haven't provided the release form, which is there on the website that they can download, I will contact the photographer and go, just to let you know, I've had this submission from X model. Do you approve the usage of that? Or if they're not the right res, I'll say, could I get the right res from these? A lot of the photographers, I mean, 10 years, 13 years, technically, I've met a lot of photographers. And it'll be a case of, oh, shot with this photographer, his name's, yeah, no, I'll give him a shout now. I'll get him on the phone and go, John, can I have this, please? And it's minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then over time, I've set up the Twisted Edge shoot days. We've done four or five. I've lost count. I've got another one coming up beginning of August, another one beginning of September, and then even more in plan as well as that. So they're just a day where models can come from wherever they are. If they want to come over, we grab a studio, we just, and you know, there'll be multiple models, multiple photographers, and we're just absolutely smashing an awesome day of just grabbing content for everyone. So the models get content for their own, we get some for the magazine, and people love them, and they've taken off really, really well. And obviously I started shooting again because I've got all the time in the world. But I love it. And it's quite a fulfilling thing when you can make content yourself for what you make. It's a weird thing, because it's like, that's a brilliant shot, that would look great in a magazine, I could put it in my magazine, I'm gonna put it in my magazine. But I always give the other photographers sort of their space first, and if there's space, I'll put something in I've done, or I'll make it a more of a smaller montage kind of feature.
Yeah.
But yeah, the shoot days are absolutely fantastic. People love coming to them. We have a great time. Everybody leaves happy, and a lot of people want to keep coming back again. So,
And are they themed shoots?
not really. I mean, we kind of. I mean, one of the ones we did in February, it was a Valentine's theme, but not specifically for Valentine's.
Oh, okay.
So I think if you do it as a theme, you're kind of putting a limitation on things. So if anything, it depended on where the venue is, what the season is, what time of year, all those kind of things. It's like if I was doing an October shoot, because obviously I have to plan it in time with the magazine release and submission dates and the creation dates and things. So if there was a venue that suited a Halloween thing, we might go, yeah, we'll do half of the day as just whatever you want to do, and then the other half will be we'll do a Halloween theme to it. So bring whatever you want to wear for a Halloween shoot, whether it be a vampire cape and vampire teeth, or whether you want to get splattered in blood. We'll run with it.
Cool, very cool.
What's the lead time for something like that? So like, let's say it's in October, right? So you have to do all that. Is it September, or do you like to have it done by August? Like when do you, like what is your typical, when you're creating new content? Because it sounds like you've got two feeders. You got your submissions and you can sort out and say, okay, this is the bones of this issue. I'll start to lay that out. And now I want to fill this in with some new content. So we got to go create that. Does that sound about right? Or do you just do it on a periodic basis, create your library, and then start to pick and choose as you go?
Yeah, I mean, well, currently, because the way it works up until September is the submission deadline day is the 20th of each month for the beginning of the following month. So for August, the deadline is the 20th of July, and then it gets released the first weekend of August. So it's always sort of planning a month ahead. So say for like this Halloween, it would have been the deadline of the 20th of September. But that's going to change now because obviously with print deadlines and run times and things like that, that's had to come considerably earlier. So from August 10th now, so the 10th of each month will be the deadline to give me the creation time, and then the copy proofing time before then sending it to print, to get it printed, to get it back to me, to then distribute there outwards. But normally, if I put a theme up saying, oh, it's this theme, my inbox just fills pretty quick. There's most of the time I could probably go, okay, well, here's the deadline of the 10th, and I'll say that on the 1st of the month. By the 5th of the month, I can pretty much say, well, it's nearly full. Which is always the issue. So I think, should I bring the deadlines earlier? But then I think, well, some people will only shoot specifically on certain dates, so that's something to try and be mindful of. People will say, oh, I'm doing a shoot for Halloween, on October the 15th. Well, that's no good for me. That issue's gone.
Right.
And this has always been the sort of problem with it, because with magazines, you have to do them earlier. If it was released at the end of the month, it's not a problem, because I could say, if we shoot it before the 20th, I can get it out, but that'll be November. So it's always a weird one like that. I mean, Halloween's always been one of those things that people won't often shoot it until October, but I release in the beginning of October, so it's kind of like I need to shoot in August.
They gotta wait till next year.
Exactly.
Save that and submit it next September, and then we'll get in the next year. Well, it's funny you said it, because I do some work for a local magazine here, and like our March issue, we do 6 issues a year. Our March issues usually are like best of issue. We call it our picks, and I have to photograph all those in February, but I have to I tell all the subjects, it's I don't know what the Celsius conversion is, but it's 20 degrees Fahrenheit here. Like, it's freezing cold. You have to act like it's spring, because this is coming out when it starts to warm up. So we have to we're going to pretend that it's I had two women, they ran a charity, they were wearing dresses and they had parkas on. It's like, okay, take the parkas off, just get these photographs done real quick and then get back in, and then switch it up, because we had to pretend that it was not freezing cold out. Meanwhile, I am barely I have gloves on, like my finger, I can't feel my fingers because it was so cold, but yeah, we had to pretend because that's the deadline. You got to get them done
Yeah.
before.
Absolutely. Sometimes it can work pretty easily. Sometimes it can just be an absolute nightmare. It is how it is, and obviously the UK being how the UK is, you don't know what the weather's going to be doing one day to the next. It's like today it's supposed to be raining, but there's sun everywhere, and apparently tomorrow it's torrential rain pretty much from 8 a.m.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
When you do, I know that you're really keen on making a safe environment for models, and I know you've got your trusted photographers list, which I'm on.
Well, yeah.
So do you have a vetting process for models as well?
I do. I mean, the way it works is that whereas there's the trusted photographers list, I don't have a trusted model list. Mainly for the fact there's far more models than there are photographers, so that model list could be absolutely huge. But this is why I've started doing things with the new Twisted Vixens that I've started running, which is an actual brand endorsed promotional group. And it will be added to every year as a growing thing. But with models and like with the whole model safety, is first and foremost and paramount of everything is that their safety on shoots, especially with us, has got to be, the most top priority. And it's the same thing that if a model drops me a message and says, I'm shooting with this person, do you know anything about them? I'd be like, let me look at my records. Or it'll be a case I've not heard of them before, but let me check on, have you checked their purple port, sort of due diligence kind of processes. And at the same time, sometimes I'll get a model who says, I'm going to be in Liverpool, for example, for 2 weeks. Can you tell me any photographers? And I'm like, well, I can. Then I'll go to my recommended list and can sort of go, yep, there's this one, this one, this one, this one. Drop them a message, tell them where you've come from. They'll be perfect with you. And that's kind of where it's at. Whereas if someone wants to report something, I will deal with that report and look into it in every aspect that I have to. Some people kind of go, well, can't you do anything about that? And it's like, well, there's legalities to look at with some things that come through. So I have
And
to
you're
look
not a
at
copper.
exactly that. So I mean, some people will come to me with an issue they've had, and sometimes I've seen bits of information, and it can be quite concerning and disconcerting because being a photographer and creative, you don't want to see that from people. So it's a case of working with people to get the best of situations for everybody that we can.
Yeah, I recently had my eyes open to this because I wasn't aware that this goes on, or I thought if it did go on, it was like really rare. And I've had like 3 models come to me saying that they didn't want to go to male photographers anymore because they'd been inappropriately touched.
Absolutely.
And I was like, what? I was like, what? On a shoot? They were like, yeah. I was like, what? And it didn't even cross my mind that someone might think of doing that. And I was like, so yeah, it was a bit of an eye opener for me. And so I'm quite a bit like, who was it?
Give me his name. Where is he? I'll find it.
We ride at dawn.
Yeah, that's it. Come on, boys. Pitchforks at the ready.
So it was quite nice though that I saw that you were trying to create this kind of safe space as well. Do you have any criteria in regards to, obviously because it's alternative model, do they have to have like a certain look, a certain height, a certain weight, anything like that?
No. I mean, the difference with the whole alternative thing is that, and with the magazine in general, is that because times change and commercial viability changes, the magazine that started 10 years ago, which was tattoos, piercings everywhere, over time that's changed to be a bit more inclusive, as to sometimes it'll feature someone with tattoo you can't see or no tattoos at all. So it sort of became a lot more open for people that were like, well, why can't I be in that magazine? And I didn't want to be the one because you're not tattooed, because that's just a ridiculous thing to say to someone. So it rather than excluding people from what it is, it kind of now encompasses more, I guess you could say. And you may see a model that has not one tattoo, but you don't know what they do behind closed doors. They could be, going home at night, dressing up in full rubber, whilst listening to Iron Maiden and doing what they do. That's an alternative lifestyle. So exactly that. So it kind of that, whereas there's never really been a set criteria. It's more a case of the only set criteria is in regard to the requirements for imagery, i.e. the DPI, the information that comes with it for copyright purposes and all that.
It
Okay.
sounds like it's interesting because like when we're talking about like representation in media, we talk about this all the time. Like you give a space for people who probably were excluded from every other platform, but now that like tattoos and piercings, while it's not universally like accepted, it is more common than it was 10 years ago. So now it's like you're kind of going in like not in reverse, but like opening the doors up because those people aren't, they don't need, you're not their only platform anymore. So you can let other people in because you created the safe space at first and now they're accepted in other places. So now you can let the next round in. It's interesting, like how representation works. Once people get a platform, then they start getting accepted other places, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look back to 13 years ago with the agency, and you sort of see, there was a lot of models. Oh, I can't get into this agency, or I can't get into that agency, and it's like, well, you come to the right place. I mean, I had back then I had models that they thought they were too old. Not on my watch. Come and join.
And I bet when you say too
Oh,
old, like
yeah.
25, I bet they were going or something.
I think back then, even late 30s, they classed themselves as too old. And it's like, you're crazy, come on in. And I had some transgender models that back then they couldn't find acceptance with any kind of agency. So I was like, would you accept me? I'm transgender. I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
The whole point is that with the whole Twisted brand is that it was there for everybody to be a part of. It never sort of excluded anybody at all, and I'd never do that. And it's the same with images now. Some people say, I'd love to be published. I'm like, look on profile, send me some images there.
Yeah.
And that's how it is.
And did you like, what made you passionate? Was it about giving the fair opportunities, or was it because you do that lifestyle yourself, or friends who were? What made you kind of go down that route as opposed to a more kind of traditional route?
My wife, my fiance at the time, now wife,
Yeah.
was quite tattooed,
Yeah.
but also short, so 5'4". So 5'4" is not getting on a catwalk anywhere back then, let alone even now. I don't even think they're taking a bit under 5'8", 5'9" or something.
I think it's 5'10",
and she found
now.
probably 5'10". So, and obviously she found issues as a sort of a not like a semi-model, but like a part-time model. She found problems with trying to get into certain brands or places or networking kind of things because she was tattooed. And that's where the whole thing started, sort of as an idea just 14 years ago, as to, well, I should do something about this, damn it, and let me see what I can think of. And Twisted Agency literally just came out of nowhere. And was supposed to be a 5-person operating group of the agency, but it was one. That was me. The other people kind of thought, I don't know, actually, yeah, I know we said we'd be involved, but I'm busy doing it. Well, you go and do that. So, and for pretty much the past 13, 14 years of doing all the Twisted stuff, it has primarily been me. So I've become a bit of a control freak with it, but I'm kind of very protective over it at the same time because
it's your baby, right?
Exactly that. And it's weird because obviously I have to have people helping me, especially as it's moving forwards in the way it's moving. So, and I'm meeting some fantastic people, but there's always a moment of, you got to do it my way. But please be gentle. So, which is great. And it's a great thing for me. And it's a learning curve for me because when you're not used to that help with certain areas, it's like, well, no, Craig, let it go. Craig, let it go. Craig, let it go. I'm doing it. I'm trying. So, because obviously, and even with the magazine moving in the direction it's moving, it still has the same core mission and values that it had way back then, but they will still continue as it moves forward as well.
It's really cool. That's really cool. And so, just going back to the start again. So you've decided you're going to do the magazine. start a layout, and then how do you go about advertising it? How did you go about getting it printed if it wanted to be printed? How did you go about like getting anyone to submit stuff? Like, what did you do?
Well, way back then it was easier because it was made for the agency, so the pictures were always there. That was never the problem. Again, it's like even now the content's always there, but I had to learn things about what's copyright, what is this thing, what is a release form you are speaking of, and actually had a falling out with a very good friend of mine and colleague and one of the world's best photographers, in my opinion. Because I posted one of the pictures on the social media page one day, to which the message I got was not of a pleasant nature. And that was just about tagging a picture, let alone everything else about image permissions and all those kind of things. So I had to go away, learn the whole laws of copyright before even starting the magazine side of things. But again, back then, so putting it together was easy. And I like I say, I look back now with fondness, but I look back at how bad it looks. Even the logo was just an Arial font of the name Twisted Edge. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. Yeah.
But you started though, right?
Exactly.
And look how far it is.
Exactly that.
We've said we're going to feel the same about these.
Well, Steph and I had this exact conversation. It was like, especially and creativity, sometimes we fall into the comfort zones that like things we know work and we just put them out in the world, right? But to do something truly new, you got to make it and put it out and then move on to the next thing. Like if you wait for it to be perfect, it'll never get out there. And art is that way. You got to you put it out into the world and then you improve upon it. I mean, if anything, it's one of those things I think we have gotten better at as a society, especially for like the tech culture. The tech culture puts out buggy stuff all the time. Like put it out there, put it out in the world, get a beta version out there, we'll play with it, and then we'll tell you what's wrong with it. And then I think as a society, we've gotten more used to that. Like I've been like, where it's like, okay, this isn't fully baked yet, but I'm going to consume it raw for right now. And that's kind of what we're doing with this podcast. I mean, instead, I was listening to a couple of the former episodes, and I'm still not sure that this mic is working because I sound like I'm booming on it, right? But we'll figure it out, and that's just it's
I'm currently in my bedroom. I've moved from my kitchen to my bedroom today to see if the lighting's any better because I kept on looking like an anemic vampire. So I was like,
that's your style. That's your style. You go with it.
Right.
So
I think it's
alternative podcast.
Exactly. Alternative podcast. But I think a lot of things are trial and error, and I think I think it's harder now to find your niche in certain things. But I think when you find it, you then have to really embrace it. It's like somebody turned around to me and said, I'm thinking about doing a magazine. I'd be like, okay, seriously? Do you have time? Because a lot of people, and I mean, in the years of doing Twisted Edge, the amount of magazines that I've seen give themselves a label as the biggest magazine of tattoo models in the UK, they've not gone past issue 2. They've closed. They've gone. They've died. Mm-hmm. And I can probably say there's been at least maybe 30 or so magazines that I know of that have started, said they're going to do this, going to be this, but then gone. It's some even before the first issue.
Wow.
And that can lead a bad taste into some people's mouths. And it infuriates me because I know what goes into making a magazine, let alone all the rest of the marketing and the whole, there's so much that goes into it that people they just see a magazine, but there's the marketing side of it, even the design and the planning of it and the content distribution of it. So when you look at someone go, I'm making a magazine, I'm like, okay, you need to give me a shout, and I will help anybody that asks for it when it comes to putting a magazine together, because I know it's not that easy. Mm-hmm. And there's a few of my friends in industry that have made their own magazines, and they will even now still say, "Hey, check on this cover for me. Do you think it looks right with the text where I've put it on the right and with the font?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's good, yeah, but you could move it up about an inch and then open and get all that kind of technical thing." And I annoy myself with it, but it helps them get their magazine looking that bit better than what it did in the first place. So, and I appreciate them coming to me for that. But I think there's so much.
I won't lie. I've thought, I've played with the idea just in my mind how I'm going to plan about a magazine for my type of photography, just because I've only seen like one. So
Yeah.
I
How
thought
you
about it, but I
say
was like,
that?
I
Yeah.
definitely do not have time. Do
That
you
is
do
a
this as your full time, or do you have a 9 to 5 as well, or how?
yeah. This because obviously with because I mean I sold Twisted Edge back in January 2020,
Oh,
and then
okay.
the new owner asked me to stay on and keep creating it rather than giving it to someone to try and recreate it, if you speak. So, and then and then did what I did with it, and then kept doing it and working with Twisted Edge as almost like it hadn't had a new owner. And then the opportunity came up at the beginning of this year to buy it back. So I did. Glutton for punishment, but it kind of, because it wasn't mine for those couple of years, there was a lot more frustration there because I want to do this, I want to change this, but it wasn't mine to do that. Whereas within the first month of buying it back, I changed the logo and made the next steps of evolution of what it's going to be, which had to happen. But it is I don't think 9 to 5 exists anymore anywhere, but it's certainly because I've now created another brand which sits above and homes Twisted Edge and the Black Book and an events company and the design company and a merchandise company and everything else. That's why it's not that's the whole thing is my day job and evening job and weekend job and holiday job, because it has to be.
Wow. Yeah.
Because
And
it
I
has
feel
to
like
be.
you've just dropped in a load more businesses there, and I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, what?
Oh, I told you there's loads more.
I
Wow.
They're
wanted
like
to ask,
magazines I make for other people.
I wanted to ask, I was looking at your Instagram and I saw, and you had mentioned it earlier, like the twisted vixens.
Yep. Yeah.
Like what, so what is that? Like what is that concept that you're working with there?
Yeah. So basically, it sort of came around as a thing that had been an idea and just sort of sitting there for quite a while. And because Bizarre magazine used to have the Bizarre Ultra Vixens, which were like selfie based, or people could submit their own images to become a Bizarre Ultra Vixen, but it was just a titular thing. So I kind of wanted to do something a bit more and a bit different. So Twisted Vixens is where people could apply. Anybody could apply. If they were UK, the US is coming later on, working with another company I work with called Twisted Angels. That's a different story. But
Do you
the
sleep
Vixen,
or eat or
occasionally,
anything?
sometimes, occasionally. It's rare, but I do. But it was to make an endorsed model group for the Twisted Edge magazine brand. So it's taken on 13 vixens who will then have their own calendar along with the Twisted Edge annual calendar. But they will be specifically endorsed on all, have their own web page on the new website, where I will endorse them as models for the brand. And they in turn will promotion anything that we want to do, whether it be on a shoot, whether it be almost. I don't like the term agency, but it's kind of like a very tiny mini agency of the magazine itself, kind of thing. But it's not an agency. But it is like a promo model group where, and the girls have been absolutely amazing, not just for what they're doing with, because the applications are all live on the Twisted Edge page, but how they're talking to each other, how they interact with each other. The positivity is absolutely fantastic. And that's kind of what I wanted to see. And I like to see more of that from a lot more people in this earth, let alone in the industry. But
Like a
that's kind of
community?
absolutely because I set up this message group on Instagram as I will post information here of what's next with the vixens and what happens. And then I went away for about 20 minutes, came back, and I was like, oh my god, it's turned into chat group central. I was like, Scott, where did I get back up to? I was like, I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm scrolling but getting nowhere. So then I set up a second group just for information purposes. But the group and the girls, they talk amongst each other, and it's fantastic to see. You know, some found out, oh, I live near there too. I didn't know you lived there. So they're already starting their own get-togethers and things like that, which is fantastic. And it is all about a community spirit. And that's another part of what Vixens is all about. I mean, nobody wants a solitary Vixen, because if you want to work alone, you work alone. That's fine. That's what you want to do. But the Vixens isn't about that. It's about being the group. And just sort of, we've got some plans in place to attend some things and do some shoots and all manner of things, just as a new place for promotional platform for them, for the magazine.
Very cool. You said about it taking up like all your time, but I didn't realize you had 5,856 businesses. So of all the bits you need to do, so of the shooting and the layout and the articles and the marketing, which bit kind of is most time consuming?
Well, I mean, at present, I can sit down with the magazine now and all the content, and if I had to, I could put a magazine together in 2 days flat. And that's at 96 to 110 pages, depending on how much great content there is. It's taken time to get there, but it's that case of, don't bother me, I'm busy, leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm working. Easy when you don't have 2 kids. But yeah, I'd say the most time consuming is the next bits. So sort of, you've made the magazine, you've released the magazine, you're doing your marketing, and then it's going, okay, well, what can I do with it next? Where can I put it? And then, there's things like TikTok, which became a bigger thing. And it's like, I need to do more TikTok videos. I've got to do more TikTok videos. I should do more TikTok videos. I'm not. I should. I need to. But then Threads came out and it was like, oh God, another thing to get onto. So It's these things, these elements that come around it. Like Vero, I thought was going to be bigger than what it was. It's not. It's very quiet on Vero. But then you've got Clapper, which has come out, which is a new version of TikTok. So I'm like, do I need to look into this? I don't know. Another social platform. My phone has only got so much space for apps. But it's those things as to what can I do next? Because I can make a magazine, that's fine. I can get the submissions, that's fine. I can advertise it, that's fine. Next, what's next? So more time is probably spent in literally just sitting there going, okay, what can I do next?
What else can I do to get attention on it?
Exactly that. So, but obviously, and that's changing again anyway because of it going into the print side of things. So I've been learning WordPress, which you need time for, because that platform is just, I'm looking at it going, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But the new website.
WordPress is wild because it can be very simple or incredibly complex, and it gets I had my old website I did in WordPress, and it was like, you go down the rabbit hole of like this plugin and that plugin, and then you need like another plugin to like improve the speed because these 2 plugins are data hogs, and you're just like, you know what? You can go down that rabbit hole very quickly.
It is, I mean, because when you're used to things like Wix, which is drag and drop, publish, bang, there you go, your own domain. Oh, that's easy. But WordPress is like, I've got to click on that to make sure that goes into that, and so literally for the past sort of couple of weeks, I've sort of got the new domain for the overall umbrella brand, and I've been creating pages and creating merchandise and all this kind of stuff. So that's been the biggest sort of new, not challenge, but new thing that Craig has to learn, because Craig has to do this. So. But it's all, again, it all goes under the new things that are happening, and I think a lot of people could say, like, does that not get tedious? Well, no, because it's so damn exciting because of what's coming, and they're what kind of take away the challenge, but make it like a fun thing. Because otherwise, I'd have given up making magazine years ago if I wanted to be a millionaire. Wrong industry, my friend. So. But it's these things like taking back up photography again, because I know a certain image I want to capture and I know how to get it so it looks editorial in the right place on a page. Whereas you could tell somebody, okay, take a shot for me of her, brilliant, should be great on a cover. Make sure she's over to the right-hand side because the logo goes on the left. All these kind of things. But 9 times out of 10, I won't get that image that I'm expecting because it doesn't look how I think it should look. So picking up a camera again, and I've just bought myself a new camera, which got delivered today. So I'm like a kid at Christmas.
What did you get? What did you get?
I got an M50 Mark II mirrorless Canon.
Oh, nice.
Oh, it's nice. Amazon Prime Day deals, damn you. So
I saw some lenses on there that I nearly went for as well. But I was like, stop it.
I bought two. Don't ask me what they are. They're just this and then that one. One's got that numbers, one's got that numbers, because of my photographer said, get that lens, get that lens. Okay, yeah, I'm on it. So, and he's going to show me, because I love my Canon. It's great, but it's so old and obsolete. It just doesn't work properly anymore. So had to get a new one just to sort of get better pictures with. So, but that's another fun element for me, that I can go out and go, okay, who wants to shoot? Let's go and grab a great mag piece, whether it's a cover, whether it's just a feature. So these are the things that sort of I put in a calendar. And I mean, my calendar is stupid. I've got 4. I've got my one on my desktop, my one on my laptop, my one on the fridge, and then I have an A3 paper one sat by my desk, and my diary as well, just so I know, like, am I free then? Yep, okay, cool. Then put that new thing in that I'm doing, like I was on a meeting today about a shoot and all these things. So for me, the biggest time consumptions now are what's happening next. And then from then, I'll learn as to what I think I'm doing right and how to adapt it to make it work right and to become more efficient.
And have you mainly done the promotional side? Because obviously you're talking about having to learn these new platforms. Has most of your promotion and marketing been through social media then?
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I have absolutely no doubt there are far other avenues. Some of them, you know, when you talk about the mainstream media side of it, can be really costly, like a billboard poster or a radio ad. I mean, TV, I'm not even talking about TV prices, because
yeah, they're really expensive.
Exactly that. And, you know, I mean, there's certain events that, like Rogue Model Management, they do events and they always have Twisted Edge on the screens going around the venue with their alt markets and things like that. So, and I know I need to get more involved with looking into the marketing side of things like that when I have the time. But this is why I've just got somebody who's working with me now as commercial manager to be looking at these things for me now. So it means I can sort of not have to stress as much over it, because I know they're really invested in that and looking to doing what they're going to do with it.
Well, I mean, you've been going 10 years, so I'm going. You're doing all right, you know.
Doing all right. It's okay. It's not bad.
You do well.
You know. But I love it. And yeah, there's been moments over 10 years where I've gone, I've had enough, sick of this, don't want to do it anymore. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna get rid of it. Yeah, that soon passed from that moment to go, for what you're talking about, Craig. You can't do that. You enjoy it too much. Yeah, I do. So
I think with creatives that happens quite often. As in,
absolutely.
I'm not on about a weekly basis, but every now and again, every single creative I know at least goes through a stage and they're like, okay, I can't do it. Yeah. I'm burnt out. And then they're like, no, I'm fine. It's all right. I've had some food and sleep.
Selling my camera. I don't want to do this anymore. Take my camera. I'm like, really? No. Oh yeah, but that's the other thing with this industry and with doing Twisted Edge. I've met so many amazing people that some have become really good friends, some have become really sort of trusted advisors for me. And you know, some of them I'll talk to on a regular basis. I'll speak to one of them probably once every couple of days. And it's great, because I don't know many industries where you can meet so many great people with literally a post on a social page. And the interactions I get from models, photographers, brands is just phenomenal. And I can't see me getting that kind of thing from doing anything else than what I do.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant for me. And it you know, people, you're doing a great job with that magazine. It looks really great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And it still humbles me, because to me, I make a magazine. Yeah, a big diff. What? Yeah, but it's been 10 years, Craig. I'm like, yeah. And it's like, who else has done that? I'm like, I'll say that. Pat on the back, cheers. Those things where, you know, I still don't realise sometimes how big Twisted Edge is, or how important it is for other people, because it's their first time published or their first time cover, where a lot of magazines wouldn't touch certain images because it's not their thing.
Yeah.
And that's the reward for me. You know, it's not, if it was about money, I'd have stopped making it a long time ago. But the reward for me is the feedback I get from people, and to know that I still talk to models now that were in my agency 13 years ago. And we still communicate. They still go in the magazines, and they're fantastic people. And one was on the birthday cover on the back cover of the birthday issue because she was late getting the submission through. But she is such an amazing person that, it was a pleasure to have met her. And for people like that, it's brilliant because it kind of shows me that, well, if they're still around after 10 years, and so am I, something's working pretty well.
Yeah,
and I love
absolutely.
So I have a question for you. Like, you're moving into a place where you're going to create a printed product. What was the magazine before? Was it like delivered via email? Was it like what was your revenue model for the electronic version, or how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, because originally, way back when, the only platform before others was Issue, which kind of I've made an emag. What do I do with it? Where do I go with this? And Issue was a site that I think either someone told me about or I stumbled upon as to, yeah, you can stick it on there. I'm like, okay, great. So you can make it on there, then you can put it on your website so people can go on the website, flick the pages on the website, that kind of thing. Then within X amount of months, I found MagCloud. Don't like MagCloud. But they were the start of being able to not only put it in the digital format, but also in the print format. The only issue is the cost price to it. And that's why it has to go to the print side of things, because there's so many platforms you can sell a digital magazine on. That's the easy part, but it's the print part which has always been the most costly part, because what a person pays to buy a copy of the magazine, I have to pay the same as the creator. I think I maybe get like 5% off or something ridiculous. So even though it's a bit pricey, isn't it? I have to pay that as well, just as you do. And because it's made in America and sent from America, you incur quite a heavy shipping cost on that. I only found one other print-on-demand publisher based in Amsterdam, but their prices now match MagCloud. So it's kind of like, well, you used to be cheaper by about dollars-wise. They were about $8 cheaper than the MagCloud prices, but they've now matched to MagCloud. So it's a case of, well, you're not viable now. So the next thing was to look at full print. So I found a printer that I've had test copies from with the Black Book. That's where that gets made. And it's one of the things, why have I not found you before? Where have you been? And they're doing a standout job, so they'll be the people I'll be using and for the next things.
Amazing.
But digital will still be there. It'll just be done on a different platform. Because digital was everybody's got a phone, a tablet, an iPad, or something, and phones are getting bigger and bigger. So pretty soon there'll be a phone that's about that size. That
Back to the 80s.
Just reading this magazine here. Thank you very much. So, but yeah, it will never the formats will never change in regard to digital, and obviously going to the print as well, and they'll both stay there running alongside each other.
It's cool. And we've only got a couple of minutes, so just before I wrap up, two things. You spoke about having articles in there and like film and album reviews. Are you going to start putting like concert photography in there as well?
Absolutely, well, yeah. I always have done before. I mean, I've got people that go to the tattoo events, or they'll go to this Comic-Con and things, and they'll say, can I send them to you? Absolutely. I've always been open to that. And especially more so now with moving forward with the content, what it can be.
Amazing. And then last question for me, I don't know if John's got any more, but where can people find you if they're listening to this right now and they're like, oh, I'm into that, I want to have a look at that? Where can they find you?
Certainly. Yeah, you can literally go onto Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and it's at Twisted Edge Mag. Every social, even the threads, is the same name. Got quite clever with that one. Just keep it the same on all platforms. So wherever you go, I think the only one that's different is Facebook, which is the TE magazine. But other than that, at Twisted Edge Mag.
Awesome.
That's good. Thank you so much. No, I guess
okay.
This is fantastic. I love hearing your story. Just the different iterations you've gone through and now landing, like it's almost funny, like, because the print magazine is so traditional, like you started in this place and now you're like in the almost like going back in time but forward at the same time. it's a fascinating story. So I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people say print's dead, but in this industry, people want the print. They want to have that copy. Not just models, but photographers too. So by denying that, it's kind of like, but no, I love seeing work in print, and I still buy a magazine if it was in the industry of what I wanted it to do. And it's just mine will be the first in a long time.
Yeah, I can tell you that, you know, there is something special about holding a piece of work. Like it's different. I tell photographers all the time, print your work. Like just, and because it's and people get excited because you can actually hold it. It's different.
Definitely.
Because we're in an age now where, like, if with social media and everything else, like everybody can publish everything, but like how many people get to make it into a magazine, and it makes it special,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we'll wrap it up. And thank you so much, Craig, for your time and to tell us about your story and all the many, many businesses you have. It's amazing.
Thank you very much.
Hats off to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. It's been an absolute blast and loved every second.